Thank you so much for your time, Your Excellency.
Pleasure.
We're here in London for a royal visit by the Crown Prince. Is this where you think you'll take your crown jewel, Saudi Aramco?
Well, the visit, of course, is very important, and it's a lot broader than one topic. The UK and Saudi Arabia have been allies dating back almost a century. We've been through thick and thin together. This visit follows successive visits by kings and crown princes from the kingdom, and vice versa, from the United Kingdom to Saudi Arabia. And of course, there is the historic meeting some 80 years ago between King Abdulaziz and Churchill in Cairo following World War II that solidified this relationship. And this is another historic visit, given what the UK is going through, transitioning away from its EU membership into a more independent but more global role in investment and trade and relationships and partnerships, and also given what Vision 2030 will entail for the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia.
So given this history, would you come to London?
We are in
for a
London.
listing?
We are in London. And as far as the Aramco listing, if that's what you're alluding to, London continues to be in contention. The only certain thing about Saudi Aramco IPO is that A, it will happen. B, it will happen, the anchor market will be the Tadawul exchange in Saudi Arabia, which is being prepared to not only take the Aramco shares being listed there, but bring in a lot more foreign investment into the Saudi capital markets. And given the importance and the central role that London plays and will continue to play, we believe, post-Brexit, we think the relationship between these two centers of capital is very important. And as far as the second venue of the listing for Saudi Aramco, if any, it will be announced in due course, but the decision has not been made yet.
So is the international listing 100% confirmed for this year?
The international listing will be ready to be made this year. We've said that repeatedly. The company has prepared and the government has prepared. We have created the framework, fiscal and otherwise regulatory, for Saudi Aramco to be listed this year. The actual timing will be announced when we feel that the conditions for the success of that listing are in place, and some of those conditions are not in our control. We have to make sure that the global capital markets are ready and that we've made the decisions about the listing venues as well.
So is there a chance we could see a delay into 2019?
I cannot comment on that, but I would just say that the objective of the IPO has always been to optimize value for Aramco and its investors, and that is the guiding principle that we will use.
I'm pushing on timing because many bankers say you only have a short amount of time left for the IPO train. When is the last possible moment you can decide to hit 2018?
I don't believe that we're hitting any deadlines. And as far as I'm concerned, between December 31st and January 1, there is no value loss for the kingdom. So I don't see this deadline, artificial deadline that you refer to, as being significant in our decision-making process.
Have you had any talks with potential cornerstone investors about the IPO?
It's premature for us to market the company, and therefore I am actually limited by legal constraints on what I can and cannot say about the IPO. But I think every investor, it's fair to say, and I'm sure you see it yourself, Annmarie, every investor around the world is interested in Aramco, and naturally
journalists.
They approach us, and we address their questions.
Okay. So the conversations are ongoing. In terms of valuation, do you still see Aramco as $2 trillion?
The market will decide what the valuation is. We believe that Aramco has a lot of intrinsic value that has not been seen by investors because we have not shared publicly all of the available information. So we will wait until we do that. And when investors see what Aramco has and its present value as well as future value creation opportunities, those investors will decide what the valuation should be.
Bloomberg Intelligence analyst Sally Yilmaz actually had it at 1.5, close to $2 trillion. Do you think the $2 trillion mark, that price tag was a mistake prematurely? Too premature?
I think these are just numbers. To me, intrinsic value will be determined by investors, and the number will be whatever the number is. So I wouldn't waste time dwelling on those hypotheses.
I want to move on from Aramco. Are the talks of a nuclear agreement with the U.S. still ongoing? We know there's a lot of pressure we hear from the U.S. to get this done.
No, there is no pressure. I think the U.S. sees a program that is extremely well intentioned. They know about the intent of Saudi Arabia politically, economically, and our energy diversification. We have a strong alignment with the U.S. on multiple fronts, not the least of which on energy, and they see this shift in the energy mix of Saudi Arabia towards diversification, introduction of renewables. We have a great cooperation on renewables. The nuclear is still pending a nuclear agreement with the U.S. and accommodating the 1, 2, 3 aspects of the U.S. Nuclear Act. So we hope we can align with the United States. The United States brings good technologies, capabilities, and know-how, but we have a lot of global interest to join with us in our civil nuclear program, and it's going to be competitive, it's going to be transparent, and if the U.S. is able to overcome some of the limitations they have internally within their political system, we will more than welcome them.
Yeah, on that 1, 2, 3 agreement, why does Saudi want to preserve the right to enrich uranium?
Well, Saudi Arabia is endowed with energy, all types of energy. Oil and gas is well known, but also renewables in terms of solar and wind, as well as nuclear. We have, as we estimate, we have 3 to 6% of the global uranium deposits within the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Vision 2030 is about economic development, localization, and diversification.
But this would be quite controversial, right?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. There are many, many countries that are able to tap their own resources in nuclear and enrich their fuel. So we believe the kingdom should not be restricted from developing its own natural resources. Just like we shouldn't be restricted from developing our bauxite into aluminum, I don't think we should be restricted from developing our uranium deposits into kilowatt hours. We will comply. We will comply fully with the IAEA requirements. We are a signatory of the Non-Proliferation Treaty, and the kingdom will not be using any nuclear technology or fuel that it enriches for anything but its civil program. So to restrict the kingdom from that is not acceptable to us.
But do you think other countries in the region would then want to set up their own nuclear programs, and this could potentially lead to a nuclear arms race in the region?
I don't believe this is about an arms race. This is about an economic development and localization of technologies that are going to evolve and we want nuclear civil power generation to not only be introduced into the kingdom, but to grow into the kingdom. And I think there is nothing wrong with seeing the kingdom actually as exporting electricity that is generated from a combination of nuclear, renewable, gas that we are rapidly developing into the region and beyond as transmission technologies evolve. And if and when Saudi Arabia is able to develop its nuclear fuel, we should be part of a transparent, well-regulated, well-governed global nuclear fuel market, which is available today, but Saudi Arabia can be part of that.
You've announced plans for 2 nuclear reactors. In the past, there was talk of maybe 16. Do you see yourself building more than the 2?
Well, if you look at renewables, we announced 10 gigawatts up to 2023. And the idea is this is firm. The 10 gigawatts of renewables is firm. We have the lands, we have the projects, we're going to tender them one by one until we reach that. For the nuclear, we're going to start with 2. And we're going to do price discovery, we're going to test the markets, we're going to look at our localization potential, we're going to look at cost trade-offs based on that price discovery between nuclear, renewables, and fossil fuel generated electricity, and then decide what is the optimum energy mix. It will almost certainly grow and may not get to 16. We may go to smaller modular reactors. The kingdom is a huge, almost a continent. So the shape of nuclear technology development in the kingdom is yet to be determined. But it's almost certain that it will play a part of our energy mix, and it will be part of the localization of the total energy industries within the kingdom. And we want to do it under the full spotlight of global scrutiny from the IAEA per binding agreements that we have signed to. And we would welcome to work with our traditional partners under that framework.
Moving on to your main source of energy, oil. Will you need to continue the cuts for 2019 from the OPEC deal?
The oil markets change on a dime, as they say. So I think it's probably premature for me to say exactly what will happen in 2019.
Would you be open for it if the market...
I can say with certainty that we will continue, almost with certainty. Of course, things can change, as I said, unexpectedly. But it looks like we're set to continue with this framework for all of 2018. And then we'll determine what we need to do in 2019. The one thing I know is that all of the participants have worked hard. What we have achieved is partial. Our job is not done yet, but it has been quite a turn from the lows we have seen in 2015 and 2016, and we're starting to breathe. The countries, the companies, the service industry, our financial sector. So what we want to do is preserve what we've achieved. What we've achieved as a framework has been a savior for an industry that is too valuable to leave to the volatility that we could be subject to, and I think everybody wants to work hard to preserve it. So I'm sure in 2019 there will be an evolution. We will see what it brings, but we're not just going to part away and
So if the market called for it, you and the members would likely be
open? We will do what is necessary to preserve the market stability that we have brought about, yes.
Any discussions yet of then phasing out the curbs? We do see oil trading between 60 and 70. Many say the market has rebalanced.
I don't think the market has rebalanced. Certainly this first quarter we've seen, as we would have expected, builds in both crude and inventory. It's a bit erratic data. Quality globally is shaky, so we have to wait and see what the market does the remainder of the year. But we're certainly on our way, well on our way towards a balanced market, and that's what I refer to as the success of the 24 countries. And in due course, of course, we will need to let up and allow supplies to catch up with the incremental demand that is continuing to grow.
Are there any discussions of curbing them now or not yet?
Curbing?
Phasing out the curb, sorry.
No, I think what we've discussed, highly conceptually, is that when it's time to lift, we will lift gradually, and we will adjust to the seasonality. So if we lift the curbs in the first quarter, we have to be also conscious of refining maintenance season and lower demand. So we cannot We cannot lift all of the curbs and flood the market at a time when the market may actually be demanding less. So we will see. The timing will determine what we do at that time, but we're going to be very conscious of gradual reintroduction of the supplies that have been removed.
You're working on a framework right now with Russia and some other non-OPEC members. Many have called it the supergroup. What's the status of this supergroup? How will it function? Is there progress on the talks for it?
All we've agreed with our colleagues on both sides is that this has been good for all stakeholders, producers and consumers, and that we need to find a way of institutionalizing this framework beyond a one-time deal that has been extended a couple of times, and look for ways to continue monitor markets, coordinate, seek opinions from all sides, and then be able to quickly move into action in the future if necessary. So there are a number of options that are being considered. I'm not at liberty to say what they are.
Would Russia join OPEC?
You need to ask that to my colleagues there. But as far as I'm concerned, any country that is a major producer is welcome to join OPEC. And as long as they're willing to play by the rules, and if they can't, then we will excuse them out. Unfortunately, this happened with one of the founding countries, Indonesia, that couldn't
2016, yes.
That couldn't stay within the group because they couldn't play by the rules. So any country that joins obviously has to be willing to live by the rules of OPEC, and we think OPEC has been helpful to producers and consumers and indeed to the global economy.
Shale is roaring back. That's one of the biggest takeaways this week from CERAWeek in Houston. Are you sure, you and OPEC, that you haven't inadvertently unleashed a new glut? Has OPEC almost shot themselves in the foot with this? Because now we see shale really taking off, being able to produce at these prices.
We're living in a 100 million barrels per day of demand world, and the U.S. may have grown at 1 million barrels in 2017. We'll see what 2018 brings. There are a lot of variables, from completions of drilled but uncompleted wells to drilling new wells. There are discussions about which basins can continue to grow at the same pace. Too many issues that I think only time will bring. But even if you assume a continued extrapolation of the growth that we have seen in 2017, we're seeing demand, on the other hand, growing north of 1.5 million barrels. We're seeing declines from the base of existing production, of which about 6 million are shale, rapidly increasing. So that decline anywhere between 2.5 to 3 million barrels a year. That is approaching 5 million barrels of new capacity that's required, okay? And that's going to come from all over the world. If we assume that 1 million will come again in 2018 from the U.S., that's not going to wreck the train. I think the oil industry will continue to grow globally. I think given the short cycle of oil from the shale in terms of not only its entry, but it's also its decline, I think we need a broader base of new projects to meet the demand. So rather than being concerned with shale, I'm concerned that most of the investment that's coming in is going into shale rather than a broader base of production, the long cycle projects.
Okay. Finally, on OPEC, in terms of inventories, OPEC says they need a better target than the 5-year average. I know there was discussion about this. Do we have a new target?
That study is taking place as we've agreed with a number of entities, the OPEC Secretariat, our own technical teams. That will be presented in the June meeting in Vienna, and I'm sure it will be also a topic to be discussed during the seminar, the OPEC seminar in Vienna. So I invite you there to come and deliberate with us.
One final question. Today's International Women's Day. Soon, Saudi women will be able to drive, go to sporting events, music events. so it's a huge step for the kingdom, but many in the Western world say these are pretty much mundane, everyday actions. How do you think Saudi Arabia could do more to give equal rights to women?
Well, first of all, we need to recognize that driving is a superficial activity. It's not the real empowerment that we strive for in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. If you look at the substance, within Saudi Arabia, more women graduate from our higher education system than men. There are more classes and classroom seats available for women than men. And it's not just in the humanities and traditional. It is in the high-tech areas of biotechnology, medicine, architecture, IT, and more engineering schools are opening up opportunities for women. The next phase will be to ensure that the workplace is ready to embrace all of these graduates and bring them in ways that are supportive of their career aspirations, but at the same way very respectful of our unique traditions and strong Islamic values. And we're doing that deliberately. The third aspect beyond education and jobs is entrepreneurship and startups and allowing women to go into the new world that Saudi Arabia is living in, which is one where economic power is being dispersed geographically as well as in terms of the institutions. It's no longer concentrated in government and big companies like Aramco and SABIC and STC and others. It's one where SMEs and startups are going to mushroom and take a bigger role and a bigger bite of the economy. And we want women and innovators from that gender to be the driving engine for this. So providing them with the right financing, right enabling environment, and opportunity, I think, is a key part of Vision 2030 that will go way beyond allowing women to drive or opening cinemas or doing some of these less significant things.
Do you think a woman can ever run Aramco, be the CEO of Aramco?
I have 3 girls, and I hope one of them will have an opportunity to run a big institution in the kingdom. And hopefully by the time they're ready, they will be bigger institutions than Aramco that they can run. And as a father, there is nothing that I would want more than that, but I want to do it with full respect to their dignity and make sure that the workplace, whatever it is respectful of our traditions and our values and our unique expectation from women in society.
Thank you, Your Excellency, so much for this interview.
Thank you.